If you've been watching the channel recently, you know that I've been experimenting with using 3D printing to recreate vintage Kenner action figures. And, well, in some cases that meant just literally trying to copy one, as I did with Jabba. This is an actual figure, and this is the 3D printed one that I made. And I think that turned out pretty well, actually. But honestly, this is not the kind of thing that I'm that interested in doing. It was more of a proof of concept just to see if I could do it. I'm more interested in using these 3D models to come up with new things. So, for example, I tried printing the same thing off at half size, like that, and I think that's, a really cool version of Jabba that we haven't really ever seen before. And I'd like to explore maybe doing some other characters in this scale as well in the future. But in addition to that, in addition to just, printing and painting them realistically to look like the original figure, I thought it would be cool to experiment with other materials. So one thing that is really cool about resin 3D printing in particular is that you can print in translucent resin, or sometimes just transparent resin. And it actually looks pretty good. With traditional FDM 3D printing that uses filament, you really can't get much of a good transparent look. They do have translucent and transparent filaments that you can buy, but just because of the nature of the way it works with the layers and everything, it just doesn't lend itself to being actually transparent. There are some ways you can get it to look a little bit transparent, but basically it just doesn't work. At best you're going to get translucent so that it'll pass through some light, but that's it. But with resin 3D printing, it's a bit of a different story. So I decided that I would make use of that ability and try and print a version of a vintage Star Wars figure in a sort of hologram style. So that means essentially translucent blue. And if you're a Star Wars fan for very long, certainly a Star Wars collector, you're aware that we've had a lot of Star Wars figures in hologram color schemes, throughout the years. So, basically what I need to do for that, let's get these guys out of the way for now. We're gonna take the 3D model that Desert Octopus has already created for the Jedi Luke figure and print it on my Elegoo Mars Resin 3D printer. In fact, let's take a look at that model right now. You can see here that it's not the most detailed 3D model in the world. Of course, the original figure is not super detailed either, but I think for our purposes it will do just fine. I've just arranged them here on the bed. I found that with a printer around the size of the Elegoo Mars, you can basically get one vintage figure split up into its parts, fit it on the print bed. And I decided to use the ABS-like translucent blue resin from Elegoo, which, through a happy coincidence, I guess, is just about the perfect color for creating a holographic figure like this. When a print is just off the printer, it looks really nice and clear, but you'll find that once you clean them off with alcohol and cure them, that they get really cloudy and frosted looking. But there is something we can do about that, thankfully. So here we have all the pieces cleaned and cured. You can see how kind of frosted they look. We can fix that actually in a little bit by spraying them down with some gloss coat enamel spray. But we're going to go ahead and assemble this first. I think it's probably a little too much work to try and spray them individually like this, and it's not really necessary. So what we have is the body here with holes to receive these pegs, and I've had some trouble with some of these figures from Desert Octopus that I've printed where the pegs don't seem to want to fit into the holes properly, and I've had to end up just sort of foregoing the articulation altogether and just gluing them in place. I'd like to avoid that if I can, but we'll see. So let's just try and see if this will fit in there. That does not feel great. Maybe a little something in there. I hadn't tried sort of clearing this out earlier. I should have done that part first, probably. This is just a little file. All right. Let's try that again. There we go. That does seem to more or less fit. And we'll try the other leg. Yep, excellent. So we've got that. And now the arms, you know what, let's go ahead and just sort of do a little preliminary cleaning out. I did do my best to make sure there wasn't any residual resin in these holes before I cured them. That can be a problem. But, you know, you never know how these are going to fit until you try. All right. Yeah, good. That seems a little loose maybe, but not too bad. Yeah, actually that came out really nicely. Okay, the only problem we may have is with the head. I've had some issues with these pins in the past. This is just a teensy little pin that will hold the head on and still allow it to turn. I left it on the supports here so I wouldn't lose it, and you know, I could cure it more easily, but I'm gonna have to cut those off now. And it's kind of easy to accidentally break the pin when you do this, but I think I got it okay. We'll see if it fits. The problem I've had sometimes with these is that the head ends up standing up much too high. It looks weird, you know, it's like on a little post, which is not what you want. Okay, we got that part in. This doesn't seem to want to go inside this head part. I haven't cleaned that out. You know, I just want to give you, if you're interested in making this kind of thing, give you an accurate idea of what it's like. It will, in some cases anyway, require a little adjustment work. You might have to print things more than once. Let's see if that'll fit. Having a little trouble getting that on there. What I may do, and you know, this is one thing you can do. It doesn't even seem to fit in there straight, does it? One thing you can do is to sort of break off part of it and glue it into the head, but then leave the bottom free spinning, and that'll still have the same effect as if you had gotten this to work properly. I'm gonna just pull this out. And I think I am gonna just take my flush cutters here and cut it off partially. All right, and then we'll put that cut off part into the head. That seems like it might be a little too much. Okay, so that will fit on there anyway, and then what I'm going to do is glue the head onto the peg there. So here is Luke all assembled and sprayed with the gloss coat, and you can see he's a lot more transparent looking than he was before. I think it's a pretty cool effect. Really looks like he's made out of crystal or something almost. We've still got articulation in all of his limbs there, and his head works as well. So I'm quite happy with this. The only thing is I think I forgot to clean out the resin of from his foot pegs, and so it doesn't fit on a standard vintage stand, unfortunately, although you can get him to stand on his own relatively easily. In addition, I decided to try making the Emperor using the exact same technique that I just showed you, and that came out really well as well, although I did have a problem with this one in that I couldn't get some of the joints to function properly, and I don't know, I would have liked to have printed this again, but I ran out of the blue resin, and I decided I would just go with this. What I ended up doing was to break the pegs off of the legs and one arm and glue it together, and it looks really good. I'd prefer it to have working articulation, but at this point, I'm satisfied with this. His one arm here does work properly, though. And I'll say, this is a very kind of beefy figure. He's got a lot of resin in him, and so he's more clearly blue than Luke is, which is kind of cool. And so yeah, I'm really happy with how those turned out. Looks a lot like the effect that I wanted, but of course I couldn't stop there. I wanted to do one more figure, and I think you can tell what that's going to be. Da-dum, 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 dum, 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 dum. Here he is, Jabba himself in translucent blue, and he is glorious. There he is. I used the same exact model and same exact files, in fact, that I used to print those painted models I showed you earlier, and just did it in translucent blue without any real problems. If we look here at this video I took earlier of the body just off of the printer, I thought it was interesting because you can see just how truly transparent it looks like when it's fresh off the printer, and then how it turns quite cloudy once you've cleaned off the excess resin and so forth. But again, I was able to fix that pretty much by spraying it with some gloss coat, so I'm really happy with this effect. Oh, by the way, I also printed a Salacious Crumb. Look at that. Pretty awesome. Of course, one of the cool things about this kind of translucent figure is that you can actually light them up if you have, say, an LED light underneath them or behind them. And I wanted to try that out with this panel I have here. It's a light-up LED panel that it's just all white. We'll see how it looks. Yeah, that looks really cool. Especially in person, you can tell he's lit up quite blue. Sometimes the camera will kind of overcompensate when there's something very bright on the screen. I don't know how well it's coming through, but I think you can tell. Let's take a closer look. So there he is, looking a lot like a hologram or possibly a Force ghost. Definitely a very cool effect. Let's go ahead and try the Emperor as well. Put him right there. Here, I'll move Luke out of the way a little bit. Oh dear. Yeah, that's cool too. I'm sure you're all wondering what Jabba's going to look like on this thing, so let's go ahead and plop him down here and give it a shot. Oh yeah, that looks really cool. Looks almost like a lamp or something, right? Like he's glowing from inside. Wonder if I could turn this into an actual lamp of some kind. That would be a cool project, but maybe something for another day. I should give you a little bit better look at the other parts of him there. You can see even inside to the mechanism. Now, I haven't been able to fix the head turning, tail turning mechanism on this one yet. I haven't really tried on this one yet, but yeah, really, oops, turned it up. That's, yeah, look at that. Very cool. And let's go ahead and bring old Salacious Crumb out. I didn't really give you a good look at that earlier. He came out really nicely. Whoops. There's no articulation on Salacious. I mean, technically the vintage figure has an articulated tail, but the 3D model does not, so he's just very easy to print. And here we have the Emperor, and of course, good old Luke standing next to him. There we are. So I am quite happy with how these turned out, and if I could get this guy to stand up properly. There we go. Come on, you can do it. Jabba will help you. There you go. Yeah, this is really the kind of thing that I want to use 3D printing to accomplish, so I'm really happy that it turned out this way, and I hope you enjoyed watching me make it. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.